Good morning everyone, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Sustainable House Day 2021 in Western Australia, is where we are, in Perth, Western Australia. We're in the beautiful Hall's Head, which is about an hour south of Perth metro area, and we're here with Paul Morrison, who has built a certified passive house. We're just going to have a little bit of chat about the sustainable features of this particular home and passive house. I think, Paul, we could probably start at the very start. I guess we'll talk about your journey. How did you get to here?
Yeah, well, in a rather roundabout way, Brian. I've always been interested in housing and energy, and since we moved to Australia 25 years ago, we were in the fortunate position to be able to build 3 different houses over that period. And of course, when we started off, budget was very tight. We ended up building a project home, and having read a little bit about energy conservation and orientation and stuff, to the extent that we could, we put in some of the principles of, where should the large glazing, how should it be focused this way or that way, and that sort of stuff. 8 years after that, we moved on and came over here to WA, probably refined some of our knowledge about energy and housing. And we wanted to build a house that sort of was more fully responsive to solar passive. So we got that designed and built that place, which is a large family house, 422. And it did a reasonable job as integrating solar passive principles. But at the end of the day, it didn't perform the way that we wanted it to perform. Sucks up a lot of energy, pretty costly to run, and is way too big for 2 people. We looked around for another block because we didn't like buying other people's problems, and which is very common. And so we knew we'd have to build again. So on our journey, we found that this area, really like this area. It's a fantastic area to work, to live. We came across this little block, and the stuff that they build with here in WA, it seemed like the old very bog standard of double brick, no insulation. And having built the place, you could see that a lot of the techniques were do it as cheap as possible, as quick as possible, and get the punter to pay an awful lot of money for that. Always interested in the glazing that they use in Australia, and some of it's very poor. But I noted that there was the inkling of double glazing starting to find the footing here in WA. And I just came across in my web searches your website on iSmart. And immediately it struck a chord with me, the idea of greater levels of efficiency, standard double glazing, integrating principles that were born in Germany and researched, and the fact that they were focused on data and performance and measures of performance, and that really struck a chord with me.
That's pretty interesting. You went to passive solar, whatever you built over east, be it standard brick home, and then over here you went to passive solar. So you always had that, longing or that drive for efficiencies. Obviously you're a man, an intelligent man, you're well educated, so you were looking for the numbers and the performance. How did you find the design process?
Designed as a bespoke house for this particular block, because the block had certain challenges anyway. Plus it also had certain positives, its orientation and its link to the park, and strategic positioning towards the city and all that sort of stuff, the water. So it had a lot of ticks there. The process itself was much more, it was much more collaborative. We began to establish a relationship with yourself and iSmart and a couple of other people there, and also with the architect,
Keller Design Group,
yeah. Again, so there was a close connection between you and Keller Design and us in the middle as potential consumers, and so it was trying to build that network of communication to produce something that was going to meet our needs. And remember, the narrative around this house is a house for our retirement. But by and large, that was a positive experience, because it was about co-constructing something that we all wanted to achieve. I mean, you only want to build quality stuff, because that's your reputation. We want something that's going to serve our purposes into the next 20, 25 years. But I did find that, quite a collaborative, iterative process.
As you've pointed out, the collaboration at the start is key to success. If you don't collaborate and you don't do it right at the start, then you're always playing catch up and it never gets right. We'll run through the house and the efficiencies in this particular house. You're well versed on how the house was built. And in brief, I'll just run through. We've got an undercroft garage, which is built into the earth, which had its challenges. But because of the site, it was what it was. That was the best possible design we could come up with. So we had some thermal bridging issues down there, but we dealt with that in insulation. Then we've got three different levels to the back of the house, which were challenging as well. For you in the process, and you were involved in the whole process, right through design to contract and build. Do you want to run through some of the efficiencies in your house with, let's say, insulation and windows and stuff like that, so that the audience can, they can realize exactly what's in here?
Some key things obviously are insulation. So we're sitting on top of the garage, and the garage has an R7 rating. I think in the roof it's R6.
Yep, that's correct.
And in the walls it's R3. Yep. And all the internal walls have insulation as well, but more for sound.
Yeah, so that's a 2.5 acoustic high performance bats.
Yeah, and so that actually is really quite an important inclusion in my book, because this house is incredibly quiet. I like a quiet environment if you're sitting reading or something. Yeah. I think that's a real plus that people tend not to pay too much attention to, but having a quiet environment, that contributes to that. The glazing, having built a couple of houses before with pretty bog standard glazing, makes a massive difference to the feel of the place, but also the quietness. Even closing the doors here out onto the balcony close off a lot of noise from the street or the birds. Yeah. Opening the doors allows the bird noise and dogs barking and everything to come into the house if that's what you want. When they close really nicely. Yeah. It feels secure as well as helps towards efficiencies.
It's another one of those byproducts of, when you look at performance, you automatically get quality by default. Again, in that we're looking at U values which are extremely low. So you've got better sound protection, but better radiation protection. You've got a lot that comes with these windows and doors. It's another, again, example of a byproduct of quality when you're looking for performance. Some of the other efficiencies here, you've got air tightness and HRV. Do you want to touch on that?
The thing that's most noticeable from a lived experience point of view with respect to the air tightness and all the other things contribute to this as well. But at night, for example, we're in the winter time now, but at night, as fast as it goes cold outside, inside this house, it feels like it's warming up, even though we're not putting on any heating. So the bands for top and bottom temperatures remain sort of constant or pretty constant, irrespective of what's going on outside. At what time of the year it is. It manages the air temperature and cleanliness, obviously, with great ease. It just does it effortlessly. Yeah.
So the HRV in this is a Stiebel Eltron. I think it's an LWZ.
Yeah, 180.
Yeah, 180, yeah. Very highly efficient unit. It's a certified passive house component as well. And they're virtually, it's a set and forget system. Inside the house?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, if it was the case that it was really cold here and nobody in the house, and we came in, we might flick the heater on for a little while, but you wouldn't leave it on all day or all night, as you might do in other places, simply because the warm air will just escape so quickly. You wouldn't do that in this house.
Let's touch on a few more of your efficiencies then before we wrap up. We talk about passive house, generally we talk about a full electric home, right? So your hot water heater?
Again, that's a Stiebel Eltron. It's located really neatly in our garage, which means it's not exposed to the elements, because that can cause wear and tear on the pipes and stuff like that.
So that's a heat pump, hot water heat pump,
Works brilliantly.
And PV, solar system?
Yeah, we've got a 6 kilowatt system, and I think with 21 panels. Okay. So because we are retired and we might be in the house most of the day, we've gone back to a very simple tariff. So you pay a flat tariff all the time. And the advice we've had from Synergy was that that'll work out to be way more efficient for you. Well, if we're here most of the day, and we have to turn on anything electric, we've got the solar system. The inverter we've put in place is a solar edge inverter. And so you're able to monitor the performance of each panel. And if there was anything wrong with each panel, you'd identify which particular panel needed to be attended to. So it's a pretty neat sort of system.
So how are we looking you have a full electric house. How's your electricity bills? What are we looking at?
Well, I haven't really paid any electricity bills since we've been here. You'll have to ask me next year, Brian,
Okay.
when the $600 runs out.
All right. So you've been in here 9 months and you haven't paid any electric yet?
No, I think we had a setup cost at the
start,
that was last year sometime. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
And you have much of the rebate left, or you don't know?
Last time I checked, there was about $209 or something left in it.
You've been in here 9 months. You haven't lived through all 4 seasons yet, but you've got 2 shoulder seasons and a summer. So what are you thinking?
It's definitely the right thing to do. It's built around our present and future needs. Yep. But also it's a really nice place to live. You know, it's quiet. It feels like it's clean everywhere. You know, it feels fresh everywhere without having a hurricane blowing through the place with open doors and open windows. I think the best sort of testament to that is, you know, Francisco was often expressed concerns as we were in the planning process of the house will be too small, or, you know, won't do this or won't do that. And, you know, after living here for 6 months, she says it's absolutely just right. Good. It's perfect for our needs. And it's because you have air filtration, because you have double glazing and stuff. And we've got 3 dogs hanging around here. But the level of dust and dirt that comes into the place through normal transport in and out is nowhere near as bad as it was.
If you had one thing you could say, so let's say we're looking at everybody for Sustainable House Day and anyone that wants to look at this, and there's a broad range of sustainable homes and ways to do this, and we all know that. We choose Passive House. Not everybody's going to choose that, but if you had a message for the people out there on Sustainable House Day, what would your message be?
Go and see how these places are constructed. Once you see the shell without the gloss on it, I challenge anybody to not be impressed with the level of detail, the level of thinking that's gone into the thing. To look at, if you know anything about insulation or how an insulation can add to your quality of life, look at these houses before the final level goes on, and see how much detail and see how much quality is into that. Talk to other people who've been through the journey. I think is probably the most powerful thing that you can do.
So, Paul, final question, and it's probably a dangerous question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So, let's say you had to do all this again. Would you do anything differently? What would you change?
There's not too much to change, Brian. You know, the narrative was us building a house for our retirement in a spot that was going to add to our quality of life, highly energy efficient, that had a contemporary feel, that had a tinge of European design, also represented value for money. The sort of icing on the cake was to build it in a collaborative way rather than, you know, I don't think we ever felt as if we were just punters. You know, we were always sort of working with you and with iSmart to try and get the best that we could do at the best that we could afford, and that makes a huge difference. You know? Passive House is all based on positive outcomes. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy Sustainable House Day 2021, and again, thank you for your time. Enjoy and chat soon.